am Samson Balogun, and this is Daybreak Live on Dominion Television, Ibadan. We begin with a significant development in Nigeria's power sector. The Minister of Power, Adebayo Adelabu, has resigned. What led to this decision? What does it mean for ongoing reforms in the electricity sector? And how might it affect policy continuity at a time when power supply remains a major national concern? That is our Daybreak gist this morning. We'll also bring you the weather report and shortly after, Daybreak news with major developments shaping the day.
Definitely, and I'm Oluwayomi Adelakon. We then turn to the newspaper headlines. This morning's front pages reflect a mix of political development, governance questions, and public reaction. We'll take a closer look at the major stories and the perspective behind them. At the top of the hour, our big story examines the relationship between two key arms of government, checks, balances, or power play. Understanding the executive-legislative nexus, are the interactions between the executive and the legislature strengthening democratic accountability, or are they increasingly shaped by political interests and power negotiations?
All right, join us for that conversation. Of course, Sam Woko will be joining us. He's the deputy editor at the Nigerian Tribune. And before we close, Trend Watch will highlight the stories and conversations gaining traction across the country this morning.
Definitely. It's indeed a morning of insight and critical thinking.
Right, let's get right to it and we shall begin.
Yeah.
Okay, good morning to you.
Good morning.
Yemi. It's really nice to be here and to talk about so many things. But then before that, let's go on a quick break, and when we return, of course, we'll continue with that particular conversation on the show this morning. We'll be back after this time out.
Need a professional space to bring your vision to life? Dominion Television Studios offers state-of-the-art facilities perfect for your next broadcast, commercial, corporate video, or live event. With flexible rental options, cutting-edge equipment, and a supportive team, we provide the perfect environment for high-quality productions. Unleash your creativity. For bookings, email us at marketing@dominion.org.ng. Call us on 0705 506 1061 or 0916 101 1061. Check us out on Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, and TikTok at Dominion Broadcast and on X at Dominioncast. Book your space today. Dominion Television, your channel of choice.
Live from the heart of the action. Welcome to the nerve center of Next Level Broadcasting.
This is the OB van, where the studio meets the street.
Equipped with cutting-edge cameras, crystal clear audio, real-time switching, and broadcast control, we don't just capture moments, we deliver the experience live.
Anywhere, anytime, from stadiums to red carpets, breaking news to buzzing festivals, weddings, birthdays, and all sorts of ceremonies. We bring the world to your screen in real time.
It's not just a van, it's a complete mobile production house, a command center, a broadcast beast.
This is more than a broadcast. This is the OB van difference. Live, loud, limitless.
Ready to go live? Like never before. Book the OB van today and take your event to the world. One powerful broadcast at a time.
To book, call 0705 506 1061 or 0916 101 1061. Email marketing@dominion.org.ng or visit our socials on Instagram at Dominion Broadcast.
Dominion Broadcast, your channel of choice.
Welcome back from that short break. The show is still Daybreak Live right here on Dominion Television, Ibadan. All right, we begin with the conversation around the resignation of the Minister of Power, Daybreak, who yesterday submitted his resignation letter to the SGF. And then people will be saying a lot of things. They have actually said a lot about it anyway. But Yemi, Oluwayemi Adelakun will stay here with me in the studio, and which one will be making sense of this particular story and what it means for the political landscape in Oyo State. Before now, so many people said the fact that he did not resign when others were resigning from the cabinet of the president, that there is a chance he might not be contesting in the forthcoming gubernatorial election in Oyo State. And just shortly after that, the day before yesterday, about 2 days ago, yes, he had a meeting with some political bigwigs in Nigeria, especially chieftains in the APC, which included Chief Bisi Akonde, a former governor, and of course also included a few other people. Probably during that period, a compromise was reached and he had to resign because he has always made it known that his only ambition that is left is to become governor of Oyo State. And now that he has resigned, there are so many permutations and combinations. People have said the anointed candidate of the APC, just like the consensus we have had in Ogun, where Solomon Olamilekon, Senator Solomon Olamilekon Adeola Yayi was chosen to be the flag bearer of the APC in the forthcoming election. In Lagos, there are rumors, and some have even denied it, that the current deputy governor of Lagos State, which is Obafemi Amsat, might likely be the flag bearer of the APC in Ogun. But then, if all that are settled, in fact, some even said that, including senatorial seats, they have been fixed, which included Ogun East will be going to the current governor of Ogun State, which is Governor Dapo Abiodun, and so many other places like that. In Oyo State, yesterday, even Engineer Remi Oseni, who happens to be a member of the Federal House of Representatives in Oyo State, also made mention of something like that, that there was a stakeholders meeting where the president told him that it is not time for him to be governor of Oyo State. Go and contest for the office of senator, and after that we can see how you become governor of Oyo State. So there are stakeholders meetings are being done over and over again to decide who becomes the consensus candidate of every party, and they have to be in alignment. They all have to be in agreement. That the Minister of Power has resigned now means that according to his letter that he submitted to the SDF, he noted that he wants to focus on his aspiration to be governor of Oyo State. And that, of course, he still belongs to the APC. That means he will be doing that under the banner of the APC. So will it go to the wire, where everyone will have to contest and win primaries? I mean, a due process, there will be no consensus, or there's a likelihood that he just resigned just to make sure that the president's ambition in Oyo State is fulfilled?
Right. So just like you mentioned, he's been aspiring to become governor since 2016, and he noted that in the letter as well, that at that time he even had to resign as the deputy governor of the CBN just so he could contest. So, and then he's been there trying to contest all this while, and then even when he got the appointment, a lot of persons were asking, why did he accept it when he had the intention of contesting? But then at the end of the day, he decided to accept, that appointment. And then going back now to the drawing board, and then you mentioned a very vital point that the president said whosoever wants to contest should resign on or before 31st of March. But then Bayo Adelabu did not, follow that. And then I think I read a particular line this morning and then said the reason why he did not resign, on or before 31st is because he wanted to stabilize the power sector. And there's so many persons are saying, oh, that's a valid argument because, that sector is very, very vital, very germane. It speaks to the lives of, every Nigerian, and maybe that's why. So, and we also learned that he visited the president shortly before he decided to resign, released the letter. So maybe they've had several conversations. And just like you mentioned, he also visited, Baba Kondi, and I'm very sure he visited some other persons that even camera, could not, get to. So basically now, I think it's going to be a little bit intense in Oyo State. So doing a consensus will not work, because I remember there was an election in Oyo State, I think 2025, for one particular seat that was vacant, and then APC decided to go with a consensus candidate.
That was about enough.
Yeah.
The vacant position left by Ola Akinremi, popularly known as Jagaban. It was actually late, and then a rerun, of course, an election was to be conducted to fill their position. But unfortunately, people said the right candidate was not chosen because it was a consensus, that they
Right.
could have gone to the primaries. And obviously, there were so many other candidates who some people argued that were much more popular at that time that could have actually, filled that void and contest for that election. Even members of the APC, according to some reports, did not, support the candidate that was chosen.
And so it was a good advantage for the PDP at that time because so many persons were not happy with the consensus. So if it could cause problem at that level, imagine if they decide to go with consensus at this level of governorship. It's going to cause more problem, and of course it's going to lead to another big advantage for other political parties that are trying to slug it out with the APC. And of course it's not the only person. There was one of my analysts came on this show on this set and said Sharafaddy Ali is the anointed candidate of the APC, and I was like, you can't say that.
It hasn't been announced yet.
Exactly, you cannot say that. It looks like they might actually go through primaries because of these people. They are influential people in the APC, and there are other persons too who have also visited. They have been visiting because that's what politicians for. When it's time for elections like this, they will visit people that can help them in one way or the other. So we also have Teslim Folari, who is also, his body language looks like he's going to contest too. So we really cannot say whosoever is going to become the flag bearer. And then looking at what he has done, I'm talking about Bayo Adelabu now. So many people in your state are still questioning the reason why he wants to contest, especially with what he did, as Minister of Power. Because at the end of the day, before people will vote for you, they have to check whatsoever it is that you have done in office before. So, on that basis, that's why a lot of persons will vote for you. So basically, it speaks to how APC, or let me say how President Bola Ahmed Tinubu will manage this election in your state, or we manage the primaries in your state. Because if they don't do it well, it's going to affect your APC, and it's going to be very brutal. Because I remember that by-election that I made reference to, it led to a serious problem. I watched certain videos where people were trying to beat themselves up. Some persons were injured, things like that. Even reporters that went there had to run for their lives because it was that intense. So if it could happen like that, at that level, governorship level is going to be more intense. And if care is not taken, if they don't play this game well, I don't know. I don't even know why APC wants to try consensus in some state, because at the end of the day, people will tell you it's not democratic enough. How do you know that's the best person for the post? Let them go through primaries and let the best person win. But then you really cannot tell. And then it's up to APC, up to their constitution to decide whatsoever they want to do. But then looking at what is on ground now, if they don't play this game well, I don't think it will end in a good way for them. Basically.
Well, if you look at with the look of things, I think the president understands. I think one of the things he said was that there is a possibility that there are some people in that political party, if one gets the ticket, it might not likely support the other. And that includes what happened between Senator Teslim Kolawole Folari and Chief Adebayo Adelabu, who both were members of the APC. I think that was in 2019. In 2019, he contested. In 2023, he contested too. But he left, when he did not get the ticket at the point, he left the party, APC, and went to Accord. And that actually polarized the APC, leaving the gap for the PDP to actually win the election. Because some people did the permutation and said, if Bayo Adelabu had stayed in the party, maybe by now, Teslim Kolawole for the Senator, Teslim Kolawole for Lani, who happens to be a former Senate leader, would have been the governor of Oyo State by now. Because it's been an ambition he's been nursing since the days of Chief Lamidi Adedubu in Oyo State. And unfortunately, he's not been able to achieve that. He still nurses that ambition. He's looking for maybe one way or the other, that door of opportunity would eventually open. But as it stands, some people are saying if you give these two people, the other would want to repeat what he did. Maybe Chief Bayo Adelabu would want to do the same thing he did in the past election, and of course, not support Teslim Kolawole Folari. And if you give Bayo Adelabu, Teslim Kolawole Folari might likely do a bit of what Bayo did and say, look, it is time for me to pay you back. And that would affect the faith of the APC in the coming election. And I think as we speak, APC has an advantage, only if they can actually make good use of the advantage. The PDP, as a political party, especially in Oyo State, it's in shambles, because you can't really say where where some people belong to. There are two factions of the PDP: Seyi Makinde-led faction, the governor of Oyo State, and there is the Azim Bolarumi faction, who happens to be a former deputy governor in Oyo State too, late Christopher Adebayo Alawakala. Now, with the look of things, if the APC can keep their house in order and maybe go through primaries and everyone would understand, yes, we contested this primary, free and fair, and I lost, and I want to support the candidate of my political party, and everyone is on the same page, they have an advantage. Because right now, according to what Michael Ogunshino said, there might be a likelihood that they are going to leave the PDP, go to another political party, contest the election, and after the election, they come back to the PDP and then, create, maybe finish off with the fight they have started and maybe win the party back to their side. But if that happens, the PDP will be at a disadvantage. I mean, the Seyi Makinde-led faction will be at a disadvantage because, one, you have to publicize the political party. Because as it stands, I don't think they are going to Accord. I don't think they are going to ADP because ADP seems to have a candidate already. I don't think they are going to APC because APC, of course, they are still very much stronger as it stands when it comes to structure. They might be polarized within the party, but with the outlook, the APC is still much stronger. And then I don't think they are going to any political party that really has, if someone that looks like a flag bearer already. So the available party that they will go to, or parties, will maybe include NDC, owned by Seriake Dixon, and some other smaller political parties. And when that happens, you have to do publicity for your political party first, and then you start publicizing your candidate. So it means that they are at a disadvantage. I don't think there is enough time to start doing all of that. It will affect the popularity of the party, affect the popularity of the candidate. So the PDP will be at a disadvantage. But for the APC, if they can put their house in order, I think there is a chance that they might actually do better in the next election. However, there are members of the PDP who have also moved camp. There are members of the APC who have also moved camp too. But if you look at the trajectory of Accord too, Accord might just be one of the dark horses you'll be looking out for in the next election in Oyo State. Because if all political parties now, they have been fragmented, okay, you have moved to this political party, that has moved to another political party, you are now on the same level playing field with a party like Accord and maybe ADP, then there might be surprises.
Right.
That is why some political parties, you have to put your house in order and make sure that you pacify every member that has not gotten the ticket and say, look, there is hope. When we win, you get this. I think it was you that was talking to someone and said, look, it's not like some of us are really happy in the APC. But the president has been able to pacify some of us to stay. Maybe compensate them with one or two things. And that has worked for him so far. And I think that has been the method he's been using for so many years. In fact, it would still work with some people who some people perceive to be his enemies. And some of them have even gotten appointments, including Reno Omokri. And that has worked for him. If the APC can find a level playing field, or maybe if the PDP can also close the gap between the Nyesom Wike-led faction and the Seyi Makinde-led faction for the sake of the election. Let's move forward. Let's find a common ground. Maybe we have a sharing formula, 60-40. You bring 60%, I bring 40%, or maybe 50-50, because we both have what we are bringing to the table. You have the structure of the party according to INEC, and we have, the popularity in the state. Let's come together and do something. Until that is done, I think the election will be so open for everyone to just crawl into the office.
Right. So let me take it from the angle of Seyi Makinde now, because so many persons are waiting for him to announce his preferred candidate. Because he's been there for 8 years. So a lot of persons will want to say, okay, because he's been there for 8 years, we want to vote for whosoever he's trying to support, and then that might tilt the balance a little bit. I remember that the current speaker, Daybreak, also declared his intention to contest recently, and we really cannot tell whether it's going to be the anointed candidate or not. And then the faction in PDP also is a problem. But then there's one thing I've come to understand in politics, which is anything can happen, between 24 hours. So these factions that are trying to say we are not going to agree, we are not going to do this, they might come together, before 24 hours, and then the game will change. Because at the end of the day, it's about interest. And then I think Seyi Makinde, governor, who is a little bit, calm about this entire situation, maybe he has some plans that, he's not been able to come out to say to the people. Because I expect, surprises in your state, especially from the Seyi Makinde angle. And then that's because, he's that kind of person that loves to surprise the people. He's going to be calm. All of a sudden, you just come out with that surprise. So I think whoever is going to contest or come from him might actually have an advantage to that, incumbent fraudulent advantage, basically because maybe the governor is trying to say, this is the person I want to support. But then, if the PDP, decides not to come together, it's going to be a problem. And now let's talk about accord. I think Oriyomi Hamzat is an accord, right? And then, of course, he's trying to contest. So the chances of Adelabu, leaving from APC to accord is slim. But maybe he can do it. Yeah, we really cannot say. But then it appears that Oriyomi Hamzat is also
He's been there before.
He's been there. He's also very, weak. Last year, I think they had, some sort of meeting, and then we saw the crowd. But even though some persons came out to say, you see that crowd that you saw, don't make no mistake to think, was just, supporters of Accord Party that came. Some APC people were there. PDP people were also there. So do not even think that, that was just Accord Party, alone. So, and then people try to, talk about Accord Party. Okay, it's not a party that is so strong. They don't really have structures. But then, Adeleke of Osun State moved from the PDP to Accord Party. And then people said the same thing to him to say, this party that you, went to, are you sure it can deliver? But then Adeleke, and according to some of his loyalists, they're trying to bank on the popularity of Adeleke. Right. And of course, what he has been able to do in Osun State. So whether Accord Party will work for him or not, I mean, that's up to him. So at the end of the day, we should not also, just like you mentioned, we should not, Yoruba people will say, come out for do tembelu party. Right. Don't see any party as too
Your popularity
small.
Is also very important. Acceptability
is very key, especially in this, in this election that we are preparing for. I think Oyo is going to be, I don't know, I don't want to scare people, but the end
might
of
likely
the day,
be the toughest.
It might be the toughest, especially because the current governor is leaving.
It will be keenly contested.
Exactly. I didn't been, Sheyi Makinde is still contesting. Okay, maybe people can still speculate to say, oh, maybe because, he's been doing maybe what some persons like. And that's not to say there are people, we don't have people in your state who do not like, Sheyi Makinde. That's very constant. It doesn't matter. There will always be people who do not support you. Right. Even within his own political party, especially PDP for that matter, that we know that party, that a lot of, party members, they like to, involve themselves in anti-party activities. So basically, I do not see Adelabu leaving the APC, but it can happen, basically.
Well, anything can happen.
Right.
But if you, now, according to what some reports are saying, and some political commentators, that if you really have an ambition, and you are still in the camp of Governor Sheyi Makinde as it stands, you might likely be playing with your ambition. The reason is he has absolutely nothing to lose. He will be leaving office in maybe just a little over a year. Right. And I don't think he has made it clear to anyone that he wants to be senator. If he has something to contest for, maybe he would, have something at stake. But I don't think he has said that to anybody. And I don't think he has been clear about, his intention to be president. He only said he's qualified to be president. Right. And he has what it takes to be president. And he has not come out to say, look, I'm contesting for the office of the president, or maybe I'm contesting to be, the senator in Oyo State. So this might be really, really dicey. And if you look at the names of people who have thrown their hats in the ring to be governor of Oyo State in the PDP, some people have argued that, there used to be a time where you have so many popular names in that regard, but it's not really like that. And it's not like they are not popular, but according to what people are saying, there used to be a time where you have a certain Senator Teslim Kolawole Folani, Chief Bayo Adelabu, Sheyi Makinde. These are household names in Oyo State politics. Right. But as it stands, some of them are actually greenhorns contesting for the first time to be governor. But these people are people who they have contested maybe 2-3 times. The experience will always count. And you have state chairman of Universal Basic Education, Nureni Adeniro, former commissioner for finance, budget and planning during the late former governor Abiola Ajimobi's administration, that is Bimbo Adekombi. State chairman of Oyo State Agribusiness Development, Debo Akonde, and speaker of the House of Assembly, Adebo Ali Ogundo. You also have member representing Ibadan Southeast, Northeast Federal Constituency, Adedeji Olajide Odidiomo Stanley. He's also contesting to be governor for the first time. However, first-timers also win elections. I'm not saying they cannot win elections, but there must have been a level of groundworks done already, and there must have been a level of acceptability all through the state. I'm not saying in your federal constituency or in your ward or in your polling unit. It has to cut across 33 local governments in Oyo State, and that's a lot, because Oyo State happens to be a state, arguably the biggest when it comes to states in Nigeria. Because you look at the number of local governments as against the number of people, you would know that Oyo State actually deserves maybe 50 to 60 local government areas, and that's why some LCDAs were created under later former governor Isiaka Abiola Ajimobi at that time. So you would tell that there are so many other places to be touched. And I don't think this can be done by graying horns. Okay, it requires experience, especially at the time when that party, the PDP or the faction of the governor, Sheikh Makinde, they are going through this kind of turbulent times in their own political party, and they might likely have to leave that party to contest elections. So experience might really count, and popularity, acceptability might just be one of the things that will be needed. However, people would say, oh, the popularity of the governor might just, help the candidate. But hey, it's not the governor's name that will be on the ballot. At the end of the day, some people will say it's not even contesting. Let's listen to what this person has to say, especially in elitist areas where they would want to listen to you. They want to know what exactly you are bringing to the table. And also, it's not about how vocal you are. If you be the most vocal person on planet Earth, you must still have substance in what you are saying to the people. If you polish your English from now till tomorrow and speak Queens, some people still don't get it until you put something on the table and say, look, this is what I have in plan. There must be a clear roadmap to you transforming your state from what it is now to what you want it to be. And some people will say, oh, we are banking on. Some people have even argued that what is, Omitizo 3.0, this mind is not contesting to be governor again. Don't you have your own agenda? We have seen people who have had their own acronym for whatever it is they want to do in 2027, like the speaker saying Igbega Oyo, and some other people like that having their own. But some people have been banking on the popularity of the governor. Why not work on yourself? I think yesterday or day before yesterday we were talking about how much it costs to buy forms in some political parties. APC, they say it's too expensive, or PDP, expensive. I mean, they cannot put their forms at a very cheap rate, because it will now mean that everyone in the political party will say they want to be governor. Look at the number of people that have come out in the Oyo State as it stands, as we speak, that say they want to be governor. How many of them are popular enough to win an election in Oyo State?
But we are seeing their banners everywhere.
Yes, they will be there.
It's not about banners.
The truth is, some of them, it's not meant to say that they cannot win election. Sometimes some things do happen, and then election will just tilt towards one person. Even when, some people contested other popular parties, they did not win. But when they tried something else, it worked out for them. I think a member on the floor of House of Rep, Abejide from Kogi State, a member of the ADC, he contested with the ADC, and he won. We have seen people contest with some political parties, and then they win. There was a time, this accord we are talking about, it was the current Olubado of Ibadan land, Obarashidi Adewolu Ladoja, a senator, a former senator, and of course a former governor, that actually made accord popular in Oyo State. And lo and behold, in Ibadan Northeast at that time, they won elections in Ibadan Northeast, even though it was not, widely spread across Oyo State. But hey, they won seats in Ibadan Northeast and some other local governments in Oyo State. So your popularity, your acceptability also has a role to play in elections. So it's not about riding on the horse of the grace of another person. Can you do it? Even if you are given the responsibility, are you competent? So all these things will have to be in the pipeline. Of course, it's something you have to think about.
Right, and then speaking about riding on the also on the popularity of the person who is about to leave the office, especially in a situation where the party is not united. Because it can even work. You can even still bank on it. When your party is united.
It's strong.
Take Rivers for instance.
Right.
Look at from Wike to Fubara. The party was united. They agreed that okay, this is the person that we want. And then he won the election. And now that the Wike and Fubara are not close, you know that there was a time somebody asked Wike, are you going to be supporting Fubara for the next election? He said, I'm not here to talk about that. And that's because, he doesn't want to talk about it. It speaks volume. So when the party is not united, it's a big disadvantage. And so you might not really want to bank on the popularity of the person who is about to lead. Same thing happened when, the late governor, Ajimobi, served for 8 years. PDP, APC was not united at that time, especially one candidate even had to leave, had to jump ship to another political party because he didn't get the ticket. So if care is not taken, I don't know what games PDP is trying to play, especially the faction of Makinde now. Wike has already said, I have interest in your state and I'm going to do whatever I want to do.
I'm going to put fire in your state.
I'm going to put fire in your state. So if they don't agree with his terms and conditions, I don't see how they can come together. But then if PDP decides to reconcile, APC should go and do more, basically.
Well, just before we go, there might just be a likelihood of a PDAPC candidate in Rivers because he currently aligns with the power at the center, and that is with President Bola Ahmed Tinubu. And they have a former PDP governor who is now an APC governor in that state. So with that kind of alignment, there might just be a consensus between APC and PDP in Rivers and say, we are bringing one person, and this is the person we want you to vote for. So the election might just be a formality in that state.
Right.
But you know, these things do happen. There are situations where some things that are unprecedented will happen in some places.
It will become clearer as we progress.
Let's see what will happen in Rivers, actually. Will Fubara come out for the election? Will he get the ticket for the election? That is one. Will he some Wike support similar Fubara? Is another big question. And then will there be a coalition between APC, not merging the parties, but of course standing as apart, but saying, look, we want this particular person to be our governor? That will be another big question when the time comes. But the primaries are almost here, and the final deadline to select consensus candidates is also almost here. So let's see what will happen, and then we can judge and say, look, this is the direction some of these states are facing, especially with the issues going around about consensus selection across all the states.
Right.
But that would be the convenient point to leave that topic this morning. Let's help you plan your day, and we'll take weather report on this show this morning. So what does the weather look like across the country as it stands in Ibadan? Weather in the ancient metropolitan city of hospitality, Ibadan, is currently at 30 degrees Celsius, quite cloudy. And later in the morning, there will be a slight increase by just 1 degree Celsius to 31 degrees Celsius. It will be mostly cloudy with humidity at 2%. It will not be that far off in the afternoon as it increases further to 34 degrees Celsius, and it will be partly cloudy. Humidity will be at 3%. But by evening, it drops to 27 degrees Celsius. It will remain partly cloudy. Humidity will be at 1%. And overnight, a slight decrease to 26 degrees Celsius. Cloudy, humidity at 9% in Ibadan today.
And of course, from Ibadan, let's cross to another state this particular morning. Let's cross to Ilorin and take the weather for Ilorin. Weather in Ilorin this morning feels like 30 degrees Celsius, and later in the morning is expected to be around 31 degrees Celsius, partly cloudy around 1%. In the afternoon, we have 37 degrees Celsius, partly cloudy around 0%. And in the evening, we have 30 degrees Celsius, mostly clear around 3%. And overnight, it drops to 26 degrees Celsius, cloudy around 3%. And that's what we have for Ilorin Kwara this morning.
All right, away from Kwara State, we take these from the Center of Excellence, and that is Lagos. Weather in Lagos as we speak is currently at 34 degrees Celsius. And later in the morning, it drops to 31 degrees Celsius, mostly cloudy with humidity at 11%. And by afternoon, it rises to 32 degrees Celsius, partly cloudy, humidity at 7%. And in the evening, it will drop to 29 degrees Celsius. It will remain partly cloudy. Humidity will be at 1%. And overnight, it will be mostly cloudy. But there will be a slight difference to 28 degrees Celsius, and humidity will rise to 6% right there in the Center of Excellence this morning, and that is Lagos.
And from Lagos, let's cross to Abeokuta North Ogun. Weather in Abeokuta this morning feels like 31 degrees Celsius, and later in the morning is expected to remain at 31 degrees Celsius, mostly cloudy around 2%. In the afternoon, we have 34 degrees Celsius, partly cloudy around 20%. In the evening, it drops to 28 degrees Celsius, partly cloudy around 1%. And overnight, it drops to 27 degrees Celsius, mostly cloudy around 8%. And that's what we have for Abeokuta this morning.
All right, I will take a quick tour to Osun in Osogbo this morning. Weather in Osogbo is currently at 25 degrees Celsius, but there will be an increase to 30 degrees Celsius later in the morning. It will be cloudy, humidity will be at 2%. But by afternoon, it will also rise to 34 degrees Celsius. It will be partly cloudy, humidity climbs to 5%. And by evening, there will be a drop to 27 degrees Celsius, partly cloudy, humidity at 2%. While overnight, it will drop slightly by 2 degrees Celsius to 25 degrees Celsius, cloudy, with humidity rising drastically to 24% right there in Osogbo today.
And from Osun, let's cross to Ekiti Southwest. Weather in Ekiti this morning feels like 24 degrees Celsius, and later in the morning is expected to be around 29 degrees Celsius, cloudy around 5%. In the afternoon, we have 33 degrees Celsius, mostly cloudy around 21%. And in the evening, it drops to 26 degrees Celsius, mostly cloudy around 3%. And overnight, it drops further to 24 degrees Celsius, cloudy around 16%. And that's what we have for Ekiti Southwest this morning.
All right, we'll move straight to the center. Of course, the FCT this morning, Federal Capital Territory. And of course, as we speak, weather in Abuja is currently at 28 degrees Celsius. It will rise to 31 degrees Celsius later in the morning. It will be partly cloudy. Humidity will be at 1%. But in the afternoon, there will be zero chance of humidity, and the weather remains partly cloudy as it climbs to 37 degrees Celsius. It will be clear in the evening. It drops to 30 degrees Celsius, zero chance of humidity, and overnight it will be cloudy. Humidity will be at 1%, and weather drops to 26 degrees Celsius in Abuja, the Federal Capital Territory today.
From Abuja, let's cross to Port Harcourt. Weather in Port Harcourt this morning feels like 23 degrees Celsius. And later in the morning is expected to be around 28 degrees Celsius, mostly cloudy around 7%. In the afternoon, it will remain at 28 degrees Celsius, showers around 39%. And in the evening, it drops to 23 degrees Celsius, mostly cloudy around 16%. And overnight, it drops to 22 degrees Celsius, foggy around 23%. And that's what we have for Port Harcourt Rivers this morning.
All right, still in the north central this morning. We'll take this one from Suleja in Niger State. Weather in Suleja, as we speak, is quite similar to that of Abuja. And of course, it is currently at 28 degrees Celsius. And later in the morning, it will rise to 32 degrees Celsius, partly cloudy with humidity at 1%. It will remain partly cloudy in the afternoon, and it rises by 5 degrees Celsius to 37 degrees Celsius with zero chance of humidity. And in the evening, it will drop to 30 degrees Celsius, and the weather will be clear with zero chance of humidity. And overnight, humidity rises to 1%. It will be cloudy with weather dropping to 27 degrees Celsius right there, Suleja, Niger State today.
And from Suleja, let's cross to Kano Municipal. Weather in Kano this morning feels like 24 degrees Celsius. And later in the morning is expected to be around 34 degrees Celsius, sunny around 0%. In the afternoon, we have 40 degrees Celsius, partly cloudy around 0%. And in the evening, it drops to 31 degrees Celsius, clear around 0%. And overnight, it drops further to 26 degrees Celsius, mostly clear around 0%. And that's what we have for Kano Municipal.
And lastly, on weather report this morning, we take this one from Maiduguri in Borno State. And as it stands, it is currently partly cloudy in Borno at 27 degrees Celsius. To rise to 37 degrees Celsius. That's a huge rise to 37 degrees Celsius later in the morning. It will be mostly sunny with humidity at 1%. It will be sunny in the afternoon as it rises as high as 41 degrees Celsius, zero chance of humidity. And by evening and overnight, it will be clear. And weather will be at 32 degrees Celsius and 26 degrees Celsius respectively in Maiduguri, Borno State today. And that's all we can take on weather report this morning. We say thank you for being a part of the show so far. Do well to click the subscribe button on our YouTube channel at Dominion Broadcast and our Facebook page. You like the page and drop your comments at Dominion Broadcast Television. You can also watch us live on our website at www.dominion.org.ng, dominion.org.ng. Don't forget to drop your comments. We'll take them on this show. Let's go on a quick break. And when we return, we'll take the news. We'll be back.
Live from the heart of the action. Welcome to the nerve center of Next Level Broadcasting.
This is the OB van, where the studio meets the street.
Equipped with cutting-edge cameras, crystal clear audio, real-time switching, and broadcast control, we don't just capture moments, we deliver the experience live.
Anywhere, anytime, from stadiums to red carpets, breaking news to buzzing festivals, weddings, birthdays, and all sorts of ceremonies. We bring the world to your screen in real time.
It's not just a van, it's a complete mobile production house, a command center, a broadcast beast.
This is more than a broadcast. This is the OB van difference. Live, loud, limitless.
Ready to go live like never before? Book the OB event today and take your event to the world. One powerful broadcast at a time.
To book, call 0705 506 1061 or 0916 101 1061. Email marketing@dominion.org.ng or visit our socials on Instagram @Dominion Broadcast.
Dominion Broadcast, your channel of choice.
Hello and welcome. This is Daybreak News on Dominion Television, Ibadan. Amuluayemi Adelakun. The federal, state and local government have shared a total of about 2 trillion naira from the Federation account for March 2026. Details of the allocation were disclosed by the Federation Account Allocation Committee in a statement issued by the Office of the Accountant General of the Federation and signed by its spokesperson, Bawa Mokwa. According to the committee, total revenue flow for March stood at 2.3 trillion naira before deductions. From this amount, about 81 billion naira was deducted as cost of collection, while 246.8 billion naira was allocated for transfers, refunds, and savings. The Senate has condemned recent Boko Haram attacks on military formations in Borno State, which claimed the lives of several soldiers, including senior officers. The Senate directed the Chief of Defense Staff, Olufemi Oluyede, and other service chiefs to conduct a full operational and logistical audit of the incident. Lawmakers say the review should assess equipment, rules of engagement, and identity gaps requiring urgent attention. Senate President Godswill Akpabio expressed confidence that insurgency would be defeated, stressing the need for coordinated security efforts. The House of Representatives has called on the federal government to urgently address the rising cost of medicines. The resolution followed a motion by Alex Ekweche, who warned that many Nigerians can no longer afford life-saving drugs. Lawmakers say prices of some medicines have surged up by up to 500%, driven by naira depreciation and import dependence. They urge relevant agencies, including the Central Bank of Nigeria, to enforce policies that will reduce costs and improve access nationwide. The wave of defections in the House of Representatives ahead of the 2027 general elections has intensified, with 6 lawmakers leaving the new Nigeria People's Party, NNPP, and the People's Democratic Party, PDP. Their defection to the All Progressives Congress, APC, and the African Democratic Congress, ADC, was announced during plenary by Speaker Tajuddin Abbas. Following the latest moves, the APC has strengthened its dominance in the chamber with 282 seats, while the PDP now has 30 members. The ADC has grown to 24 seats, emerging as a third force, while the NNPP has been reduced to just 1 seat. The Oyo State Executive Council, chaired by the State Governor, Sheikh Makinde, has approved compensation for over 900 property owners affected by the Ibadan Circular Road project. According to the Commissioner for Information, Dr. Oyelade, a total of 5.8 billion naira will be paid to those impacted by the ongoing construction. A move is said will address agitation, curb misinformation, and fast-track development across the project corridor. The council also reviewed that over 800 million naira had earlier been paid in the first phase as compensation for displaced persons in the past 18 months. The Oyo State government has approved 153.5 billion naira as bursaries for 307 law students of Oyo origin across accredited law schools nationwide. Secretary of the State Scholarship Board, Amos Akinyoju, disclosed this during a briefing in Ibadan, saying the initiative is aimed at easing students' financial burden. He added that a screening exercise will hold from April 27 to April 30th at the Scholarship Boardroom, Ministry of Education, Agodi, starting 10 a.m. daily. Beneficiaries have been advised to adhere strictly to their scheduled dates. In business, the Central Bank of Nigeria has warned Nigerians about the rise in fraudulent messages targeting bank customers. The Apex Bank said scammers are using emails and fake links to steal sensitive information and spread false claims about its operations. It advised the public to avoid suspicious links and verify all communications through its official website. The bank also urged Nigerians to report such incidents to the relevant security agencies, noting that efforts are underway to strengthen cybersecurity. And in sports, Nigeria's women's basketball team, the Tigers, have been drawn in a tough Group B for the 2026 FIBA Women's World Cup in Germany. The team will face France, Hungary and South Korea in the tournament, scheduled for September 4th to 13th. The Tigers, five-time African champions, recently lost to France and South Korea during the qualifiers, giving them early exposure to two of their group opponents. Nigeria Basketball Federation officials say the team will intensify preparations, including a WNBA tour in the United States, to strengthen the squad ahead of the competition. You can visit our website on www.dominion.org.ng to watch us live and interact with us. You can also follow us across our social media platforms: Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, and LinkedIn at Dominion Broadcast and X at Dominion Cars. And hence Daybreak News on Dominion Television. I'm Oluwayemi Adelako saying thank you for watching and good morning.
Need a professional space to bring your vision to life? Dominion Television Studios offers state-of-the-art facilities perfect for your next broadcast, commercial, corporate video, or live event. With flexible rental options, cutting-edge equipment, and a supportive team, we provide the perfect environment for high-quality productions. Unleash your creativity. For bookings, email us at marketing@dominion.org.ng. Call us on 0705 506 1061 or 0916 101 1061. Check us out on Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, and TikTok at Dominion Broadcast and on X at Dominion Cast. Book your space today. Dominion Television, your channel of choice.
Welcome you back. Thank you for staying with us this morning. This is newspaper headlines and analysis. I'm Oluwayemi Adelako, and we start with the Punch newspaper. We have the banner headline that says 2027 suspends Supreme Court delays PDP agency verdict. Wiki block sparks fresh PDP tension, pegs presidential format 51 million naira, a governorship at 21 million naira. Makinde come to Wiki Group. It's an exercise in futility. It appears that this tussle might not end soon between these two factions within the People's Democratic Party. Nigerian democracy at stake, and that's coming from the ADC. If care is not taken, these people might not be able to, bring up a candidate for certain positions in the country as we progress for the elections. And away from that headline, I also have this one that says Adelabu resigns, presidency explains Edu and Dangiwa exit. And of course, we've discussed that extensively this morning, that a lot of persons were expecting him to resign actually because they knew that he has intention of running for governorship election. And away from that, I also have this one that says federal government plans to borrow 700 billion naira via April bond. That's another huge amount of money, 700 billion naira. If we add that to the current debt that we have, only God knows, what would be the total amount. And then it speaks to why, or let me say, why we keep borrowing actually, and then if this borrowing is actually reflecting in the lives of every Nigerian. And away from that, another headline is saying insecurity Senate seeks campaign ban in 8 northern states. And that's because, a lot of them are trying to, do certain things that are not, the right things. And of course, the Senate is trying to ban campaign in 8 northern states. But that's a lot, basically. And then my question is, do you think these people will revolt against this ban or not? Away from that, we also have this headline that says alleged coup suspect plead not guilty, remanded in DSS custody. Don't forget that that same coup that they denied at some point and later came out to say, oh, it was really a coup. Don't forget the members, or let me say the family members of these persons who are arrested are protested severally in Abuja to say, okay, charge them to court if at all they are guilty of whatever it is that you are accusing them of. And right now, we say suspect plead not guilty. They are saying they are not guilty and they're remanded in DSS custody, which speaks to the fact that they might not be released soon. Away from that, we also have this headline that says federal government considers airline debt waiver amid fuel crisis. And of course, a Lagos court jails for staff for the 2 years over 80,000 pound scam. 42 years over 80,000 pound scam. And then beyond the 42 years in jail, at the ST all the money that this person will pay at the end of the day. Federal government mourns as ambassador designate to Algeria dies. I think that's a sad one, coming from the federal government. And away from that, let's cross to Daily Independent. We have a headline that says article raises the alarm over ambiguities in the Electoral Act, demands amendment to safeguard sanctity of ballot. I'm not sure these people will stop until we are done with the elections, because basically they're just trying to act as opposition parties. And then with what is going on, especially within the ADC, the factions, and then the big shot of the party are alleging that the federal government has something to do with whatsoever it is that is going on within the ADC. And away from that, we also have a song that says Supreme Court reserves ruling in ADC leadership, PDP convention suit. When are we going to hear the final say on this particular matter so that these people can basically move on? And away from that, we also have this one that says security situation improving, Boko Haram weakened. That's coming from federal government. Is that a true statement? Do you think the system, the Boko Haram system, is truly weakened, or are they gaining more strength, more momentum, even as we progress as a country? Because basically an attack happened recently where a lot of persons lost their lives. And federal government is saying security situation improving. I think one thing we need to do as a country is to be real. When we are realistic, we can begin to look for how to tackle issues. But then, when we keep looking for ways or using words to actually make the situation a little bit, calm, I don't think it's going to help us, especially, with the issue of insecurity in this country. And away from that, we also have this headline that says Nigeria's ambassador designate to Algeria dies in Turkey. That's a sad one. Suspected coup plotters arraigned, remanded in DSS custody. And majorly, this is what the family members were asking for. Charge them to court, let them plead their case. And if they are guilty, let them face the law. If they are not, then you can as well release them. Away from that, we also have a headline that says reps urge action to stabilize food prices, support farmers. I remember that a particular senator, said something about a few months ago that the prices are coming down, and then Nigerians were not comfortable with that statement. And then he said, looking at what people are buying in the market compared to the last administration, he thinks things are better, but Nigerians are not happy, and of course they are not buying that statement because they think the price has gone up, especially with the increase in the price of fuel as we speak right now. Don't forget that anytime the price of it goes up, it will definitely affect every single thing in the market. And away from that, we also have this headline that says presidency says Edun Dangiwa resigned, not sir. That's another dichotomy, another dilemma, actually, because I remember when we were talking about this matter yesterday, that most Nigerians were saying, why is it that the presidency will just decide to sack people, and then at the end of the day, you are the one who appointed them, so why are you sacking them before they are done with their tenure? Well, according to sections 147 and 148 of the Nigerian Constitution, the president has that authority to actually sack, to hire, because it's conferred, he has that power to do that. So basically, I think the reasons why some Nigerians are not comfortable, especially with Edo, is because they feel so many persons have resigned in the last few months, and then even though they are hearing some rumors that these people were sacked. Okay, good luck to Mr. Wali Edo, and of course Dangiwa on that note. And away from that, let's also check out this one that says federal government, state, local government share 2.036 trillion naira match revenue. That's a huge amount of money, and that's why the presidents will always say, hold your governors, your local government chairmen accountable because they are receiving more money than ever. Away from that, let's cross to Daily Trust this morning, and I have a headline that says 72-hour deadline. Bono family is fearful, 416 captives, and there's a deadline of 3 days. Do you think the federal government can meet up? Do you think they are going to pay another ransom just to, get these people out of the den of this bandit? It's something to look out for. 416, that's a huge number. And away from that, we also have this one that says COVID, 10 suspected cases identified in Cross River. I think at this point, people must also be on alert with whatever it is that they do, places they go to, and of course we must be hygienic the best way we can because of this COVID scare that we are seeing, and not just in Cross River State. Reporters said that even in other states across the country, they've been able to record some numbers of people who have this, particular, this is speaking about COVID. And away from that, let's also check this headline that says, Ambassador designate, Lily dies at 50. Minister of Power Adelabu resigns. 19 people die in a Do-Taraba road crash. That's a very sad one. Supreme Court holds fate of 2 parties. And then speaking of those parties, we have ADC and People's Democratic Party. These people have things in common. Most persons who are in ADC today, they used to be members of the PDP. And maybe that's why they have similar problems. Away from Daily Trust, let's cross to The Nation newspaper. And I have this headline that says, coup plot suspect to get speedy trial from Monday. Court orders remand of ex-general, 5 others in DSS custody. Maybe this will calm the family members down a little bit. And away from that, we also have this headline that says, federal state councils shared 204 trillion naira for March allocation. We've spoken about that. This is the best time to hold your governors and your local government chairman accountable. And away from that, we also have this headline that says, PDP fixes presidential governorship primaries for May 17 and 18. That means that party, the 2 factions, they have the window of less than a month, about 3 weeks to decide whether they want to reconcile or not for the good of the party, basically. Forms for 51 million naira, that's for the presidency, and 20 million naira for the governorship election. And away from that, we also have this headline that says, Edu Dangiwa resigns, says presidency. Adelabu quits to run in Oyo. I think the presidency decided to release that statement majorly because people were asking questions on why these 2 individuals resigned. Because according to some Nigerians, they were comfortable with it. And there's also the factor of health reason. I'm seeing that, on some, blogs that saying, the man resigned because of health, because of his health. And majorly, the man is yet to say anything about the entire matter. From The Nation, let's cross to Vanguard newspaper, and I have this headline that says, Supreme Court reserves judgment in APC ADC leadership crisis. We've spoken about that. Court remands alleged coup plotters in DSS custody. Ex-finance minister Aiden resigned on health grounds. Yeah, this is what I'm talking about. That's coming from the presidency. Basically, they've also added that to the caveat to say he resigned because of his health. Well, some Nigerians believe he was sacked. And away from that, let's also cross to another headline that says Nigerian officials involved in killing of Christians. That's a strong statement coming from U.S. Senator Ted Cruz, saying Nigerian officials are involved in the killing of Christians. I thought we are past this statement. I thought we are past the stage of trying to say that some persons are trying to kill other people, because at the end of the day, if you look at how people die in this country, whether through banditry or maybe they were attacked or accident or things like that, you see that people are dying across religion, across ethnic groups. It's not just about one particular religion. And because we are shifting blame on a particular maybe religion or ethnic group, it's not helping us. It's not helping the matter. It's drawing us back, and it's really sad. We need to face insecurity head on, and that's the problem that we have in this country. We love to shift blame, which at the end of the day will not solve anything. And away from that, let's also check the headline that says Atiku to NAS amend the Electoral Act now to save democracy. That's a big one, because at the end of the day, it was signed. As a matter of fact, the senators, they agreed on it, and then they sent it to the president, who gave his assent, even though that assent was not up to 24 hours. And people were asking, why is it that the president did not make certain, let me say, did not ask questions, did not meet with the chairman of INEC, meet with people, ask certain questions before actually, assenting, to this electoral act. So we've gone beyond that. The president already gave his assent, and so Atiku now asking us to actually work on the electoral act now. I'm not sure that will be possible. And away from that, let's also check this headline that says factional PDP chairman Turaki Doct gets 100 million naira bail. That's a huge amount of money. That will get presidential ticket of the PDP twice, because it was pegged at 51 million naira. And away from that, let's cross to Nigerian Tribune, and I have the banner headline that says Benue, Benin killings, Senate 6 decisive actions, and that headline as these writers want service chiefs to probe attacks on Benin Guno, military bases by insurgents. Military hits ISWAP logistics in Lake Chad, kill over 30 fighters. Plateau government files charges against 5 suspects over Angwan Rukuba killings. Until we begin to allow people face the law, we can really not see improvement in the security system of this country. And away from that, let's also check this one that says Circular Road or your government approves 5.8 billion naira compensation. And then I've been trying to feel the pulse of the people, especially Oyo State, people from Oyo State, and they're saying maybe because the governor is set to leave office, and that's why he's trying to respond to those who are affected by the Circular Road project. Don't forget that last year we saw videos online of some persons even celebrating. They were frying akara because of the governor celebrating his exit, because they think, they were not so comfortable with whatever it is happened during that Circular Road project. And now he's been able to respond to them on what happened. Don't forget that the former governor of Ekiti, Ayodele Fayose, also went on national TV to say that the government received 50 billion naira, and at the end of the day, they were not even the Oyo State government did not even say, okay, it was true at some points, but later they came out to say, yeah, we did receive money, but it was 30 billion naira that we received, and then 20 billion naira was withheld. But now the government is saying we are going to pay 5.8 billion naira as compensation to people who were affected. My hope is just that those people who are really affected will get this money. Because we know this is Nigeria. At the end of the day, some persons who were really affected some have died, mind you. Some lost their life because they could not cope with the hypertension. They could not cope with the shock. So it's really sad at the end of the day. But then kudos to the government for remembering these people and then trying to send them some amount of money to cushion the effect. And away from that, we also have this headline that says cancer rate up to 85% higher in never married adult. Well, I think that's something to talk about. Cancer rate up to 85% higher in people who are not married yet, and that's a particular study. And of course, the final headline for this morning, waiting game for ADC PDP continues as Supreme Court reserves judgment, keep faith alive. Turaki-led camp, ADC tells member. Wike's camp releases 2027 election timetable. Oats presidential primary come May 17. Another 6 reps members defect to ADC, APC. APC retains majority with 282 seats, PDP 30, ADC 24, and Labour Party 10. And it's a fine place to leave this discussion this morning. Good luck to the political parties, who have cases in court with the Supreme Court, actually. It's a fine place to leave it this morning. My name is Oluwayemi Adelako. Thank you for being a part of this segment. We need to take a short break, and when we come back, we move on to Big Story. Please stay with us. We'll be right back.
In every democratic system, power is never meant to sit comfortably in one corner. It is designed to be questioned, challenged, and, when necessary, restrained. That delicate tension between authority and accountability is what defines the relationship between the executive and the legislature. But in Nigeria, that relationship often raises a troubling question. Are we witnessing true constitutional checks and balances? or simply a sophisticated power play? Today on The Big Story, we examine this critical nexus, how the executive and legislature interact, where the lines blur, and what it means for governance and democracy. And joining us for this conversation this morning is the Deputy Editor of the Nigerian Tribune, Sam Nwoko, and he will help us unpack the politics, the patterns, and the power behind the headlines. At the heart of democratic governance lies the principle of separation of powers. Yet in practice, Nigeria's experience has often oscillated between cooperation and compromise, and at times outright submission. One recurring criticism is the notion of a rubber stamp assembly, a legislature perceived to merely endorse executive decisions without rigorous scrutiny. This label became practically loud during certain periods of National Assembly, especially under leadership seen as closely aligned with the presidency. For instance, during the 9th National Assembly under Senate President Ahmed Lawan, critics, including opposition figures and civil society groups, openly described the legislature as overly compliant. Lawan himself stirred debate early in his tenure when he emphasized that the National Assembly would pursue a cooperative rather than confrontational relationship with the executive. While supporters framed this as a pathway to stability and swift governance, critics argued it weakened oversight, particularly in areas like borrowing approvals, budget scrutiny, and confirmation of executive nominees. Sentiments were echoed at different times in state assemblies across Nigeria, where lawmakers have been accused of approving executive requests, loans, appointments, emergency powers with minimal resistance. Public commentators and analysts have often pointed to such actions as evidence of institutional weakness. They have also argued that loyalty to political parties or governors sometimes overrides constitutional responsibility. However, Nigeria has also witnessed moments and eras of strong legislative assertiveness. Let's not talk about what happened in the 50s or the 60s, or maybe the 70s. Let's talk about just recently. A standout example is the 8th National Assembly led by the former Senate President Bukola Saraki. That period was widely regarded. Even some said, oh, it was more or less like a revolt than doing the proper thing. But it was regarded as one of the most independent Nigeria's recent democratic history. The Saraki-led Senate frequently asserted its autonomy, at times clashing with the executive arm of government under President Muhammadu Buhari at that time. And there are key instances. Delays and intense scrutiny of ministerial and executive appointments, refusal to rubber stamp certain executive requests without debate, investigative hearings and probes into governance and government agencies, the famous resistance around the confirmation of Ibrahim Magu as EFCC chairman. This era redefined legislative oversight in the eyes of many Nigerians. However, some argued. While critics argued and accused the assembly of being obstructive or politically motivated, others praised the assembly for restoring the doctrine of checks and balances and proving that the legislature could act as a true counterweight to executive power. And even earlier than that, during the early years of the Fourth Republic, 1999 to 2007, the National Assembly demonstrated flashes of assertiveness, sometimes to the point of instability, with frequent leadership changes, but also bold confrontations with the executive under President Olusegun Obasanjo at that time. And these contrasting periods raise deeper questions. Is cooperation between arms of government and a strength or is this a vulnerability? At what point does this alignment become submission? And ultimately, who benefits when oversight is weakened? The government or the governed? Thank you for joining us this morning. Sam Nwoko, good to have you here.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. Good morning, viewers.
Now, let's talk about the responsibility of the National Assembly and state assemblies too. So we can just say the chamber. Now, where does the line blur? where does cooperation become submission? And when do we draw the lines and realize the fact that the assembly is not acting in the interest of the people?
Thank you. Let's even break it into the national and state assemblies. State assemblies have progressively been subsumed by the executive arm of government. So those ones,
it's a different case.
Let's just keep that aside, and so that when we cite examples of them, we are citing examples based on perhaps the fact that they just are there to approve whatever it is the executive brings to them. Then the National Assembly, assertiveness, cooperation, legislative functions, oversight duties, and so on and so forth, have also, especially in the National Assembly, I mean the two chambers of the National Assembly, these lines are already blurred too. It has become, like what we had when this democratic dispensation started in May 1999. It was a bit different. We thought the symbol of our democracy, which is the National Assembly, was out to achieve what we know it does. But with time, we began to see that executive assertiveness began to engulf whatever independence the National Assembly had. And today, it has completely fizzled. We no longer can see any separation of powers. We can no longer see any lines. Everything has been subsumed by the powers and sometimes the shenanigans, the politics, the media blitz of the executive. So our National Assembly today, as we have it, is just an appendage of the executive.
Okay, now, with the current situation in the country, with oversight functions to be conducted by the National Assembly, and when you talk about due process, is the system working, or the system is being worked?
The system is not working because the system, if it stands as an institution, does not have the powers. The system has, over the years, been, the gnawing at the system, the gradual warming of its way into the system. By system, I mean the National Assembly, has made it bereft, has left it without any powers of its own, so to say. The only time we maybe see the executive, the legislature rise, especially in the last 8 years or thereabouts, is when they have something in common that has to do with the welfare of individual members. Because if it has to do with the welfare of the assembly as an institution, they will agree and do that on their own. They have the power of appropriation. So that nobody took that away from them. The Constitution gives them that. So they don't even have to consult anybody. They will do this and sign it and just approve it for themselves. But if something affects individual members who are powerful in the House and so on, that is when they come together and stand in resistance. This time round, not because of the people who elected them or because of what is happening across the country, which they think the executive should look into. They will come because of their own welfare. They will come because of those things that affect them. And that's about the only time you see the legislature function in this place and you hear the uproar that looks like independence, that makes it look like they are trying to be independent to be able to do their job and so on. Apart from that, the line, like I said, is broad. The road, there is no door between the two of them. It's a freeway, it's a free entry, free exit for the executive. And that has always been the case. In fact, that is what we have come to know. So much that when the Bukola Saraki administration tried to assert its independence, many people, many observers, especially those engineered from the executive arm, made it look like it was a confrontation to be able to bring down the government of President Muhammadu Buhari at that time. And it wasn't. The legislature was trying to assert its independence and do the right things.
So is that era they discovered budget padding?
That was when we discovered budget padding. That was when we saw, before then, we saw somebody the power probe, where we saw that some members of the National Assembly collected money and put them, hid some of it in their cabs, and so on and so forth. This assembly of nowadays, look at, there was an accusation that the national chairman of a political party was stuffing cash in his pockets, in his babariga. The National Assembly did not do anything. Nobody even said anything about it. At best, they were telling us that it's a party affair, it's a family affair, and so on. But hey, these are things that should take the interest of the National Assembly for the overall interest of the country. But we don't have such anymore. So after the Lawan era, the Bukola Saraki era, and we moved into the Lawan era, the nosedive became more direct, and it became more and more, more pronounced. And here we are today.
Okay, now let's now talk about certain issues that people really don't talk about. As it stands, 1999 to 2003 to 2007 was arguably the most turbulent period in the history of the Senate. And it was so tough at that time that leadership changes was the order of the day. And there was a time when it all stopped. If you become Senate President, you get to use your 4 years term, and then you go. And we really want to know what actually happened and how the transition came to play. Because between that time, 1999 to 2007, we had Evan Hewere, who last only a few months. We had Chuba Okadigbo, Ayos Payos Ayim, Adolfo Zuabara. We had Ken Namani. They were all Senate presidents. Between 8 years, they were removed in quick succession. Every one of them was being removed for one reason or the other. If it was not corruption, abuse of office, for different reasons, they were being removed. And that was under the regime of former President Olusegun Obasanjo at that time. But then, after 2007, there was a shift. And then it became so clear that Senate presidents were now beginning to use 4 years in office. We hardly had reasons for Senate presidents to be removed from his
sudden
position, removal from office. So what exactly happened? Was it a time when the executive discovered how to run the legislative arm of government by proxy?
I think I like this question. It throws up a whole lot of things. Let's take it from the lower chamber, Salisu Buhari. When Salisu Buhari came in 1999, he was accused of forgery.
False certification.
Forgery of certificates. And he said he went to University of Toronto. When the matter came up, he was thrown out. And that's put paid to his own era. At that same period, in the Senate, we had Evans Enwunem, who was a governor during the Dayaki era in old Imo State. Imo State. The Abia had been created by then, because there was Ogbonna there. Now, whenever an Enwunem came, after a few years, it was found that there was discrepancy in his own certificates too. And he claimed that it was his twin brother, that one was Evan and that he was Evans. But hey, that argument turned out to be like a cock and bull story. It was a very funny argument. He was thrown out. And then came Adolphus Mwabara. Mwabara, in quick succession, there was Ken Namani over that period. It was even Ken Namani that finished that era. Then, because there was an Adolphus who... Now, to answer your question, so as not to give that trajectory, and let's leave that trajectory, up to the time of Pius Anyim, that one he even lasted. What we saw is that during the teaching period, Ganifa Ahime was alive. He was part of the people that said, this guy forged certificates. That was also when the certificate issues, because it was the same Ganifa Ahime that took up the certificate issues of then Governor Bola Ahmed Tinubu, who is now President Tinubu. It was a very tough issue, that period. And people were speaking from every part of the country and outside the country also. So it was one very vibrant era in our democracy. What I found is that when you tend to tilt more towards dancing, tilt more towards the executive than doing the things you are supposed to do as an independent arm of government, you run into trouble. I remember Tayo Sarumi in this, he was representing Ibadan North in the House of Assembly. He stood up and told, everybody was calling President Obasanjo Baba, Baba, Baba. And he didn't call him Baba. And they said, why are you not respecting? He said, no, he can't be my Baba. He said, I am 66 years old. And he's maybe, I think Chief Obasanjo was then 70, in his early 70s. He said he can't be old enough, he's not old enough to be my father. And besides, I'm from an independent arm of government. So we had people then who could stand up to say, no, this is wrong, and they stood by their decisions. Because they know that they are protected in the legislative chamber. But now, the difference is that they have to have a pre-arranged solution before members of the National Assembly were elected. Long before Akpabio became the Senate president, there were controversies over his going to the Senate or not. Same thing with Lawan. Some said they didn't even contest the elections, that they were just engineered into the National Assembly. So what it means is that a dominant political party would have arranged what they want in the National Assembly, and when they get to the National Assembly, they will just implement the earlier plans. Everybody knew Akpabio was going to be the Senate president long before they even gathered in the National Assembly, because the plan was already out in the open. People were talking about it. Same thing with Lawan. When Lawan came, so that to me is what is happening now. When the party has seen that it is dominant in the assembly, they will hold meetings, they will call themselves together and say, oh yeah, you are going to be this. They will share meetings. The offices at the caucus meetings. They will share the offices. They will appoint who will be what, and even they will also appoint those who are going to oppose it and lose on the floor. They are going to say, okay, you will say no. You will move a counter motion. You will support the it's all dramatic. It's all drama. It will now be staged for the camera. It will be staged for the camera at the sitting where the National Assembly leadership is elected. So that is what we have found now. There is no spontaneity. There is no... the only ones who still have spontaneity are parties that are not together, who are trying to form coalition and so on, especially those who are not in the majority in the National Assembly. So that is why today the National Assembly seems to have a semblance of continuity, a semblance of balance. Not balance now, a semblance of... there is no more uproar in the National Assembly as it used to be, because they have engineered it. The drummers under the water are no longer there, so the leaf on the surface of the water will not be suffering any ripples. So that's exactly what is happening as far as I'm concerned, and it is now the norm. The National Assembly is somehow remotely engineered and string puppeted by the executive. Okay,
very quickly, some raised eyebrows and suggestions about certain things. That as the executive arm of government grown so big, so strong, that if you run into trouble with the executive arm of government, you might have issues. Now, let's take these instances and then we'll talk about it. The same Chuba Okadibo that we just talked about, former Senate President, Senator Chuba Okadibo, was a strong critique of the executive at that time. And of course, he talked about the interference of the executive on the floor of the House. And he was removed as Senate President. But he could not return. After 2003, he could not return to the Senate.
His party skimmed him out.
They skimmed him out. Kenina Mani had the same issue. In 2007, he lost. He could not return to the floor of the House. Adolfo Zuabara also, due to fallout and some issues in his political party, was skimmed out of things and he could not return to the floor of the House. Now, most recently, Abubakar Bukola Saraki, former Senate President, also, the moment he was done on the floor of the House, he could not return. In fact, his ticket was given to someone who was less popular. And was skimmed out of the whole arrangement. Since that time, he's not been able to get back into the Senate. Now, if you look at that trend, does it mean that once you are at loggerhead with the executive arm of government, especially when people perceive that you are doing the right thing on the floor of the House, you automatically become redundant or become irrelevant politically.
A pariah, a political pariah.
In your political party.
I agree. Because it's obvious and it's a pattern. Though it is something that is not particularly looked at.
Because this thing also happened to Gali Umar Naba.
Yes.
It happened to Farouk Lawan.
It's a pattern. It's indeed a pattern.
Do you remember Jibrin? Abdul Mumin Jibrin? The same issue.
You know. So all of them, Jibrin inclusive, yes, all of them like that. What happens is that once your party is dominant, somebody has to be the leader of the party, and by virtue of the way we run our own democracy, our homegrown democracy, it is the president. And once you become a problem for the president will find a way. You know, of course, you don't have to come from his constituency, because the whole nation is his constituency. So what the president will do is, he will say, this man, let's use the example of President Obasanjo, former President Obasanjo. He is from Ogun State. He will say, this man from Taraba is giving me problems. I don't want him back in the National Assembly. And he will use the party to do that. They tried this with Senator Osakwe in, I think it's Delta North. Delta North. They wanted to scheme him out. They did everything they could. They didn't give him the ticket. He went to this party with a squirrel, ACPN. He went to ACPN. You know, when they frustrated his life, he left the PDP for them in Isoko, Delta North, went to ACPN, won his election,
and came back.
Then he returned to the PDP and came back to the house. He said he wanted to prove to them that what they did, engineered from Abuja, was not. His name is Osakwe, Senator Osakwe. I think it's been long I heard about him. You know, so that's one example to tell you that they know what they are doing. What about people like Osahime Osumbo? It's the same problem. Once you run into troubled waters with the executive, you know that you are going to, in fact, you go and queue, because they will use one irrelevant, one obscure politician to quote and unquote shame you in your own senatorial district or constituency. It was a common thing. Once you, okay, unfortunately, Enwenem died. But what about Ken Namani? What about Pius Anyi? What about Adolphus Wabara? And so on and so forth. They never really had. When you look at it, you see that the powers of the executive are so over. I mean,
so enormous.
It's enormous. It's so much that Goodluck Jonathan once said that if he used 5% of the powers on the seat of the president, he would become a dictator. And it's that much. So the presidency can engineer. Even the president might not know. Some people, some vested powers, some interests, some vested interest in the executive can decide to say, okay, this is the man who is going to give us problem. We have to find a way to checkmate him. If he becomes the type of man to whom the president owes some level of patronage, you know, if it is a man whom the president owes some level of patronage and he must do some things, they can decide to make him a minister and put him elsewhere, rather than put him in that place where he can become a problem for
a radical lawmaker.
A radical lawmaker. And that is one of the word I was looking for was stability. Okay. So when you see stability in the National Assembly, it is not a stability that is done because they have the interest of the people at heart. It is the stability that was engineered at the party level so as not to rupture whatever the executive is trying to do. That is the stability we have. It's a facade. It's a fake stability.
Okay, now very quickly, just before we go, some people have mentioned the word rubber stamp assembly.
I also used it, and
this is a very big, issue that really needs to be addressed. So, when the legislative arm of government becomes a rubber stamp arm of government, does it mean that it is in the interest of the people or against the people?
It is against the people. I used rubber stamp assembly when I wrote in one of my columns, the title is Buhari's National Assembly, Lawan's Assembly, Buhari's rubber stamp is ready. That was what I wrote then. Because when Professor Itza Sege, who was the presidential aide, visited the National Assembly, Lawan said it openly. He said, whatever the president has, he can bring it, that they would expressly approve it because they knew it was going to be in the interest of the country. And did everything Buhari do, including the Nigeria Air, you know, his administration, including the Nigeria Air and the whole lot of other things, the rice pyramids and so on, were they in the interest of the Nigerian people? No. So it means that the National Assembly is basically an appendage of the presidency. It's a rubber stamp. When we didn't have rubber stamp was when people stood up and said, we want to buy Akpo legislative quarters. The president then, Obasanjo, said no. The National Assembly said yes, that's what we want to do. And they went ahead to do it. That time, it was no rubber stamp. Ordinarily, these are things the president would have said, okay. Hey, you know how, it could even be that they bought the tickets for these members. And you know how what we did, it wouldn't even have come up. Because we used to have a legislative quarters in this country. So if you are elected into the National Assembly, you take a residence there. But they bought it. You know, so being a rubber stamp is not in the interest of Nigeria in any way. It is not. Because so many things that they do not reflect on the overall economy. It does not reflect on the living standard of the people. And you hardly hear any legislator, whether within or outside the party, criticize the government and bring them onto scrutiny as much as they should do. So there are legislative oversight is more like a contract-seeking episode than an opportunity for people to know how our money is spent on projects and the quality of those projects and what the projects are bringing to the generality of the public.
Okay, lastly, just in 30 seconds before we go, let me ask you this. Do you think members of the legislative arm of government can realistically challenge the presidency, the executive arm of government, without political consequences?
It's possible. It's possible because it happened. I just cited the example of Senator Sakwe. They challenged the National Assembly. They challenged the presidency. They challenged the leaders of the party. He left the party, proved his popularity in his senatorial district, and came back to the National Assembly. It happened a lot. Look, this man has been in the National Assembly for ages. People like, in fact, there used to be some, we had a lot of people who,
regular members.
Yes, has been in the National Assembly in 4 consecutive tenures and so on. So that tells you that it is possible. Once they stand together and it is in the interest of the people, and it is in the interest of the country, and they question what if they stand together and say, look, we have to do this for the sake of the country, it's possible. It's really, really doable. Look at what happened when they brought approval for a bombing of, when President Tinubu newly came, when he sought to enter into a conflict with Niger Republic and so on. The National Assembly rose and said, no, we are not ripe for that. You know, so we can have such instances so long as they know and they see that it is in the interest of the country. But once it affects the interest of their party and so on, nowadays, they have now refused to draw the line between legislative duties and party loyalty.
All right, thank you, Sam Woko, for joining us this morning.
Thank you.
It's been an eye-opening session with you, and we'll do to bring you back to expand this a little bit more. Thank you for joining us. And as Nigeria continues to navigate its democratic journey, the balance between collaboration and accountability remains crucial. A legislature that constantly fights the executive may stall governance, but one that never questions the executive risks eroding democracy itself. So the real challenge, perhaps, is not choosing between checks and cooperation, but ensuring that both exist in healthy proportion. And many thanks to my guest, Sam Woko, for his insight on this show this morning. I'm Sam Sibalogu, and this has been The Big Story. Good morning, and keep asking the hard questions. Up next is Trend Watch.
Welcome you back. Thank you for staying with us. Of course, I'm back on set with Samson Balogun. And what we have for Trend Watch this morning is this story. They sliced my 10-month-old baby in two. Survivor recounts Plateau midnight attack that left her widowed. And of course, it's a sad one. And Nigerians have a lot to say, asking the federal government if they still want to integrate these people, these same people who are doing all this into the system. And of course, she's not the only one. You know, quite a number of other stories, people who died, people who lost their husbands, lost their wives, their children, and things like that. And of course, I also read another story. I think these people are given, for those they abducted, they are given about 72 hours, you know, for the federal government to respond before they can actually secure their release. Well,
it's quite sad that, you know, you get to read this kind of stories every day, and it's not looking like it's going to abate anytime soon. It's not looking like it's going to stop. And every day you read this kind of stories, they are not just statistics and they are not just numbers. These are human lives being wasted on a daily basis. Right. And one thing that really baffles me about this whole thing and what the federal government is doing about security in the country is the fact that how do you expect this kind of person to heal from the trauma of what she witnessed? I mean, when someone's family was wiped out right in her presence, before her eyes, and she lost everything just in one night. And that says a lot about how much damage has been done in those regions, especially North Central and the Far East. That's the Northeast. It's really sad. And these are not things people should be experiencing, especially in a country that has government. And it still bothers me that in some places they say, oh, there are some ungoverned areas in Nigeria. So if these places are ungoverned and terrorists have taken over, who should govern these places? It's the question that the government should have to answer. You have to provide, I mean, soldiers in the first place are meant to protect the territorial sovereignty of their countries. And in such case, Nigeria has the military in their numbers, and arguably the best, you know, in Africa. And we also have the police that can arrest situations of insecurity within the country. And that we also have. What is now lacking is the willpower to get things done, right? The political will. Because I do not understand, there are even sayings that if insurgency lasts more than 24 hours in a country, then you know who exactly to point the accusing fingers to. But unfortunately, in Nigeria, we tend to sweep things under the carpet and act like they are not happening. There are colorations of I don't care on everything we do in Nigeria, and that really has to stop. Someone should take responsibility and then arrest this issue of insecurity before everywhere becomes, you know, a death trap for every Nigerian out there.
Right, and I also read a story this morning. I think the federal government said we are getting better with insecurity while all these attacks are happening. Don't you think we should get to that point where we can be real with ourselves and then understand that we are not improving at all?
You know, when the government responds to this kind of issues, you have to really control the narrative. Otherwise, even stories, news can actually change the face of, you know, insecurity in the country. So the government really has to do something to correct the narrative. But hey, you can't change history. You can't rewrite stories. Because there are witnesses, people who witnessed this, people who were affected by this whole scenario. So if the government really wants to do something, it's not really about controlling what the people are reporting. It's about controlling security and insecurities in the country. Get things done. Right. And once you set machines in motion to arrest this situation, I mean, Nigerians will be confident that there is hope in sight. I mean, there's light at the end of the tunnel. Otherwise, if we continue to publish, you know, press releases and say, look, this is what happened, or ignore whatever it is so media house reported, I think we are still wasting time. We will just be circling around one particular place. The most important thing is to give express instructions to the military, give them the necessary equipment needed to wipe out insurgency in the country. Otherwise, we'll continue to read these kind of stories on the pages of the newspaper.
And it's really sad. Let's take a few comments just before we sign out this morning. And of course, Mr. I really cannot read this name, but I think it's Son of the Soil now. That's how soldiers from mainly the Middle Belt and Northern Nigeria in service of the Fulani cut out babies from their mothers' wombs and sliced them up in 1967 to 1960. Wow. Well,
it's referring to the era of the Civil War.
Yeah.
All right. Someone said that the democratic British Nigeria is happening to the slaves. I mean, that's really bad. Nigeria is a crime against humanity. that's your opinion, but necessarily sometimes, you know, one has to be cautious of what you put out there.
Exactly.
Because at the end of the day, you might not really be able to correct the narrative with what people have seen or read. It's a convenient point to leave the show this morning. We say thank you for being a part of the show so far. Do well to leave us a comment. Of course, follow us on all social media platforms: Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok at Dominion Broadcast, and on X, formerly Twitter at Dominion Cast. Join us again tomorrow for Daybreak Live Extra on Dominion Television. Samson Balogun is my name, and right after this show, up next is The Agenda by Chike Ogbogu.
And of course, my name is Oluwayemi Adelakun. Thank you for joining us this morning. See you tomorrow.